So here's another allotment and particularly garden update from towards the end of May. So as I'm recording this, it's the 25th. This really shows what I've been doing since I got back from Portugal about 2 weeks ago. So it's been really busy and things have really come on. So the big infrastructure job at the allotment, you see all that blue fencing all round on these 3 photos. I finally got the deer fencing up, so I had to buy a roll of that stuff. It's about 30 quid. So it's quite a big job to do. It took the best part of a day going around and getting that sorted. Spuds are doing quite well. So those are the second earlies, which I showed last time. Didn't really have anything going on. And then the main crop ones, which are in bigger containers, so they've taken a bit longer to come up the surface, but they're all doing all right. And the first earlies, which I showed last time, are really doing well. And they will hopefully be ready to pull up probably towards the end of July to have a reasonable size. Strawberries doing really well, lots of buds on those. So buds, actually fruit, not ripe yet, but should be ready in a few weeks. And then behind them are the leeks. So I've grown those from seed in plugs, in a plug tray, and then I've now pulled them out and replanted them in those containers there to grow on. In fact, in the last week they've probably trebled in size, so they're doing well in there. I'll grow them on until they're about the size of and thickness of a spring onion. Then they can be planted out in the bed to grow on until the winter. Asparagus all done now and gone to grass, as they call it. So before I went to Portugal, the end of the first week in May, so 3 weeks ago roughly, I planted out these tomatoes in the greenhouse. They're doing all right now. When you repot them into their end containers, they spend the first period growing roots basically before they start growing leaves and growing up. So they're just really starting now to build out. And then I've got some chilies I planted last year. They did okay, but I kept 4 back and overwintered them in the conservatory because it turns out that they are perennial. I always thought they were annual, but as long as you can keep them frost-free over the winter, they'll carry on. So they're doing nicely. More tomatoes outside, so there's a few there and then a few more there. And then the broad beans are nice. They're all now got their flowers on, so we'll be having some beans soon. The brown onions, which were when I showed my last one, and I said I planted them really late, they were hardly anything going on, but they're really taken off now, so hopefully they'll be all right. The comfrey I showed, and that's now really grown and it's covered in flowers and attracts lots of bees. They're absolutely bumblebees all over them. And there's a second one which I haven't bothered taking a picture of. And then my magnificent little globe artichoke's got 4 flowers coming on it. And I haven't decided yet whether to take them off as buds and eat them or just let them flower because they look nice. Probably the latter. And then the garlic I showed last time is doing all right. Shallots are doing all right. Also, since last update, I have prepared the climbing beans bed. So I've got 2 wigwams there. At the back are the runner beans. They look a bit pathetic if you look closely at them, but they have mostly taken, and there is some new growth at the tip, so hopefully they'll be okay. I'll let them go a bit leggy, to be honest. At the front is the bed for the green beans, and I must have had a bad batch because literally only 2 out of the, 30 odd that I've sowed germinated, and they're a bit pathetic. One of them's died in there. So anyway, I have bought another pack, and I have sown them directly, two per pole in here, and then all the spare ones I've put into pots and put them in the greenhouse. So hopefully they'll be all right. They'll be a bit late. The pea bed they're growing, but I think they've been chomped by birds. There's no sign of any flowers on them. So I'll give them another couple of weeks. But if nothing's happening on them, I'm going to dig them up and use the bed. Along beside them, though, I have planted out the pots of kohlrabi that I grew from seed. They were ready to go. I didn't cover them over, and I should have thought, because they're brassicas, basically, kohlrabi. And the leaves have just been chomped by pigeons, bloody things. And then a bed prepared for ready to receive the sweet corn. And the sweet corn, a bit disappointed. I think this is my fault. So the first lot I sowed out at the end of April. Some of them have done really well. Others have done really crap, despite all chitting them before they went in. The problem here, I think it's me, because before I went to Portugal, I was so concerned about them drying out. I really watered them, and I think I waterlogged them, to be honest, and they're not happy. So some of them are all right, and I will plant those out in the next week or so. But I've bought another pack and have sown those. I didn't have enough toilet rolls this time, but so I've done some in toilet rolls and some in pots, and hopefully they'll catch up. And while we're on the seedlings, kale and Brussels sprouts, I've potted those on the other day, and then there are the squashes, butternut squash and courgettes, so they'll be going out in the next week or so, and the strange Asturian tree cabbage I've put into pots now. They will need to grow a lot bigger than they are now before going out. And then I've got some basil, bizarrely, have done nothing. I've only got two left. Two died, and then two just are there. They haven't grown. And then beside them are seedlings of Celeria. So I've thinned them out already. And then in the next few days, I'll thin them out to 2 per pot, and then eventually 1 per pot. So, but really at home, it's all been about getting the tomatoes out. I've got so many bloody tomatoes. I've got the 3 troughs around the windows of the conservatory, 3 per pot, so that's 9. And then I've got another 5 containers which have, well, one of them's got 1 in and the others have got 2 each, so even more plants. So this bed I had cleared when I had the trees pruned back in the late winter, and I've tried to dig it over. I mean, it's just got so many roots in there. It was all shrubs in here and weeds, so it's difficult to dig over. I've done the best I can, but underneath where these tomatoes are on the weed control membrane is like paving slabs, and I can't get them up. So I don't know what the previous owner did there, but I can't really grow very much there other than weeds because it's too shallow. So hence I put the weed control membrane down. Years ago I bought a climbing rose, and didn't do anything with it, and it got lost in the overgrowth of this bed, but still survived. So I've planted that and then sown some sunflower seeds and put those on there. So they'll do all right. And then next to those are, there's another comfrey, which I thought had died. I just left it in a little pot, to be honest, and it died back, but started growing again. So I've planted it out here. Obviously, it's way behind the ones at the allotment, but they'll do all right. And then in front of it are 2 more globe artichoke plants, the same as the one at the allotment. So I had some seeds left over. I sowed a few, only 2 actually germinated, and then they've grown on. So hopefully they will do all right and look like the one at the allotment next year. And then finally next to them, I've planted some Jerusalem artichokes. Jerusalem artichokes are completely unrelated to globe artichokes. I've no idea why they're called the same thing, because a globe artichoke is basically a thistle and a Jerusalem artichoke is basically a sunflower. But obviously you dig up the tubers and eat those. So the answer to the question I posed on an earlier video was, am I going to grow flowers or veggies here? And you can see what the answer is. Well, they sort of have flowers. And then where are we? Oh, more tomatoes. So I've grown some tumbling toms, and they're in hanging baskets. So going to have a lot of tomatoes this year, I think. And then more strawberries here. I originally planted in those sort of stackable things, but only the top 2 layers survived. I only had 5 survive. They're not very happy in it. So I've just planted them in a veggie grow bag. And then talking of grow bags, don't usually bother with. I certainly don't use them for tomatoes because they're too shallow, to be honest, for tomatoes. So because you need to allow the roots to grow up a good few inches up the stem of a tomato plant. So they are very suboptimal. But Marion years ago bought a grow bag water thing, which you sit in there and it basically sort of waters it from underneath, obviously by poking through the bottom. So I thought I'd grow the cucumbers in there. So I'm growing those in a grow bag and we'll see how they do. So I think that's it. Yep. So there you go. That's where we are. Lots and lots of stuff. So there you go. Bye-bye.